In a kingdom where strength won battles and bravery won respect, the king announced a challenge no one understood. 5 men came, dreaming of power, glory, and command. But what they didn't know was this: the king wasn't testing their muscles. He was testing something far more dangerous to lose: the courage to keep going when nothing is working. When the buckets leaked, they thought the test was unfair. When people laughed, they thought the test was foolish. When the hours passed, they thought the test was impossible. And one by one, they surrendered. Except one young man who whispered, "Maybe I'll fail, but I'll fail trying." And that single decision changed everything. Long ago, in a peaceful kingdom, surrounded by golden fields and mountains, there lived a wise and just king. As years passed, the king began searching for a new commander for his royal army. Not just a strong man, but one who could stand firm when everything else fell apart. So one morning, the king's messenger rode through the streets announcing, "By the order of His Majesty, those who wish to become commander of the royal army must report to the palace next week. Only one shall earn the title through a test of strength, patience, and courage." The entire kingdom buzzed with excitement. Young men trained harder than ever, dreaming of glory, and when the day arrived, only 5 came forward. Confident, proud, and ready to prove themselves. The king looked at them and said, "I have seen men win battles with swords today. I wish to see who can win the battle against failure." No one understood what he meant. But soon, they would. The king's servants brought forward 5 wooden buckets. They looked ordinary, but each had small gaps between its planks, tiny spaces that would let water leak out. The king said, "Each of you will take 1 bucket. Your task is to fill this 500-liter royal drum using water from the well behind the palace. Whoever fills it first will be my new commander." The task sounded simple, even childish. The men smiled confidently and prepared to begin. When the king gave the signal, they ran to the well, dipped their buckets, and hurried back, only to find that by the time they reached the drum, almost all the water had leaked out. Still, they kept going, hoping it would work somehow. But with every trip, their confidence began to fade. At first, the courtyard was filled with laughter and determination. Each man tried faster, harder, and smarter, wrapping cloths around buckets, covering cracks with their hands. But nothing seemed to work. The water leaked away before they could pour it in. Hours passed, sweat mixed with frustration. The onlookers began whispering, some even laughing quietly. "This test is impossible," one of the men muttered. "Even the strongest can't win against a broken bucket." And though none of them admitted it yet, each began to wonder the same thing. Was the king testing their strength or their sanity? As the sun sank low, exhaustion replaced excitement. One man threw down his bucket in anger. "This is foolish. The king is mocking us." Another sighed. "He's right. The gaps are too wide. It can't be done." And so, 4 of the 5 men gave up. They sat aside, comforting themselves with excuses, blaming the tools, the task, even fate. Only one man remained, the youngest among them, quiet, calm, soaked in sweat, still holding his bucket. When the others mocked him, he simply said, "Maybe I'll fail, but I'll fail trying." And he turned back toward the well. Trip after trip, he carried water from the well. It leaked, yes, but every time he whispered, "Just one more. Try." The guards watching from the balcony began to murmur. Why didn't he stop? What drove him to continue when the result never changed? But he wasn't chasing the result anymore. He was chasing effort. The sun set. The torches lit the courtyard. And still, he moved. His steps slowed, but his spirit grew stronger. And then, something subtle began to happen. The wooden planks of his bucket, soaked again and again, began to swell. The gap started closing. The bucket, once useless, began holding more and more water. When he poured it into the drum and saw the water level rise, even slightly, his tired face broke into a small smile. "So," he whispered, "this is what happens when you don't give up." Hours passed, and the once leaky bucket had transformed. The cracks sealed themselves, and the bucket now gleamed under torchlight, holding every drop. He made one final trip to the well, lifted the bucket high, and poured it into the royal drum. The water overflowed, a symbol of victory born not from luck, but persistence. The courtyard erupted in awe. The king descended from his throne, placed a hand on the young man's shoulder, and said, "The water didn't fill the drum. Your effort did. The cracks in your bucket are like the cracks in life. They close only when you keep trying." The other four lowered their heads, realizing the truth they had ignored. The king turned to everyone gathered and said, "All of you faced the same challenge, but only one of you faced it with belief." He gestured to the overflowing drum. This is life itself. The first attempt leaks. The second disappoints. People laugh. You doubt yourself. But if you continue, each try fills the cracks in your strength and faith. Placing his royal seal on the young man's shoulder, he declared, "From this day, you shall lead my army, because a man who doesn't surrender to failure will never surrender to fear." The young man bowed, whispering quietly to himself, "It was never about the bucket. It was about me." In life, our bucket is our dream, our passion, our work, our goals. At first, it leaks. Our efforts seem wasted. Nothing stays, nothing works. But each time we try, we're not just pouring water. We're repairing ourselves. Every failure teaches us patience. Every setback builds endurance. And slowly, the gaps begin to close. So when things don't go your way, don't sit in the corner convincing yourself it's impossible. Pick up your bucket again. Go. One more round. Because success isn't gone. It's only hiding in your attempts. And the moment you refuse to quit, it finally steps out of hiding.